It's Friday afternoon. It's time to explore Australia's employment and jobs market. It's P2P Live Time. My name's Mark Smith. I'm Group Managing Director of People2People in Australia and Frog Recruitment in New Zealand. And yes, it's Friday afternoon, and that means it's time for us to examine what has been a pretty remarkable week when it comes to jobs and employment, with the unemployment numbers released this week. But we'll get to that in a second. What we will do today, though, is we'll go through those numbers. We'll then cover off 3 hot jobs that we need to fill today. 3 jobs in Australia that we need to fill this afternoon that start on Monday. We've got a great opportunity for Australia and New Zealand in logistics that we'll find out about. And we'll also be crossing live to Melbourne, where Jess Hickey will be telling us just how to resign without too much drama. She's got some real valuable tips on resignation. And finally, we'll be covering off our regular Twitter poll. Now, last week we asked the Twitterverse, have you ever experienced bias in the workplace? So stay tuned for those results as well. But let's jump into the numbers for this week. And what a remarkable week it's been for the numbers. Unemployment was released on Thursday by the ABS for February. And although some people were predicting a number starting with 3, it was still a remarkable number where the unemployment rate fell to 4% Australia-wide. The participation rate increased to 66.4%. That is a participation that we have not seen for I don't think we've ever seen. I think that number at 66.4%, and we'll examine it in more detail later, is the highest participation rate Australia has since records began. That means that there are 13,372,000 Australians in work. The employment to population ratio increased to 63.8%. Underemployment is decades low at 6.6%, and the monthly hours worked increased by an enormous 149 million hours. So some remarkable results that have come through there. Let's have a look at the graph for our unemployment so you can see it graphically. And it is an amazing picture to see the fact that unemployment has fallen to 4%. You can see that on the far right-hand side there. Clearly, we can see the COVID recession and the other lockdowns affecting unemployment during that time, but we are now at record lows. It's 1.2 points below March 2020. Unemployed people, the actual quantity of people, is down by 18,500 to 563,000. And that's 159,000 people lower than in March 2020. Which is remarkable. Youth unemployment did, however, increase by 0.3 points to 9.3%, but it is 2.3 percentage points below where it was in March 2020. So some pretty amazing numbers there. Let's go to the next slide, which is the participation rate. And this is a record high. To 66.4%. Now, you can see the graph that I've got here goes all the way back to 1990. And thanks to Callum Pickering from Indeed for this. I did steal it from his Twitter account. And at Callum Pickering, you can easily find him on Twitter there at Indeed. He does pull together some very interesting numbers. So it's a new record of 66.4% in February. That's up from 65.9% before the pandemic began. So it's a record numbers in terms of participation. Let's go to the next one, which is the hours worked. Thanks, Jacob. Jacob is the man behind the scenes here. Lives in Auckland, Mount Wellington to be precise. And I understand he's out on the town tonight. So watch out if anybody is listening from New Zealand. Anyway, so the Australian employment hours worked. So hours worked across Australia rebounded sharply, as you can see in February. The January decline was due to Omicron absences, but employment is now 2.9%, and hours worked are 2.7% above the level of March 2020. So that's pretty remarkable. That's some very good news there. Let's have a quick look at the state-by-state analysis. So, I mean, although the country has an unemployment rate of 4%, you can see that New South Wales is actually 3.7, Victoria 4.2, Queensland 4.3, South Australia 5%, Western Australia 4.1, Tasmania 3.9, and the Northern Territory 3.5. So there are already 3 jurisdictions there that have an unemployment rate starting with 3. The interesting one I also wanted to raise, which is not in these stats that you can see here, is that the jobless rate for women fell to 3.8%, or the lowest since May 1974. For men, the unemployment rate was 4.2%, or a shade above the 4.1% recorded just last December. And the 4% national rate is the lowest since 2008. Now, I can see that we've got an observation here on LinkedIn. And for everybody, oops, that's not the one. Excuse me. It seems quite hard to recruit for roles in Melbourne, particularly technology-based roles. Yes, it is. It's very difficult to get people in Melbourne. And Jess, who's on the line, we'll cross to her and we can ask specifically about the difficulty in finding candidates in Melbourne at the moment. We can see all of your comments on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So please feel free to contribute and we'll get to those immediately. Rightio, so that's it for the numbers, a magic set of numbers. So let's now move on, and we've got 3 jobs that we need to fill today. It's Fill Job Friday. Okay, so we've got 3 jobs that we really need to jump into here. Here's the first one. This one's been recruited out of Sydney with Chris Williams. It's a 6-month assignment. It's accounts payable. It's actually, I was chatting to Chris earlier before we came online, and this is one of his favourite clients. It's right near Linfield. Full function accounts payable. You need to have exposure to SAP. To be successful in this role, you've got to have previous experience in accounts payable. 6 months before they're actually offshoring the position, but they need somebody on a temporary basis now. You can apply for these roles by clicking the link in the comments. You can see those there. The next role we have is the shipping and purchasing coordinator. We need to fill it today. This is located in Clayton in Victoria. Chelsea Dale, one of our consultants in Melbourne there. National Wholesale Distribution Company in wood products. They need somebody to get started on $35 an hour. It's an immediate start. This is a temporary to permanent opportunity for this one, with an initial commitment, I think, of 6 months, but it could go permanent in Clayton, Victoria, $35 an hour. The next role that we have, we can fill this one this afternoon, located in Brisbane. Georgia Arnott is our consultant in Queensland looking after this one. $30 an hour. It's an admin officer. The length of the assignment is for 3 months, but you'll be working with a property team as part of the property team. You've got to be customer centric, great admin skills. But if you're available to start on Monday, jump on the phone to Georgia. 073-118-0125 is the number in Queensland there, and the details are in the comments there. So it's accounts payable in Sydney on the North Shore, shipping and purchasing in Clayton and Victoria, and the last role is in Brisbane for the admin role, starting immediately. It's Fill Job Friday. Now, you can apply for these jobs. You might be sitting on a bus and you say, well, I don't have my CV. All of the links we've given to you with vPly. You can apply just quickly with video. So a few sentences about yourself, and then we'll get in touch and we can talk to you about the opportunities that we've got. Rightio, now let's cross to Jess in Victoria and talk about these resignation tips. To get us there, we have an opportunity for a logistics manager for Australia and New Zealand that Farah Sheriff is recruiting from our Parramatta team via video. Let's play the video and then we'll have a quick chat to Jess.
Hi everyone again, my name is Farah Sharif from the Supply Chain and Operations team here at People2People. I am working on an exciting role. With their roots in Finland, the organisation I'm working with has grown from humble beginnings into a multinational welding equipment manufacturer whose innovations have shaped arc welding time after time. They pride themselves in their 4 pillars that heavily contributed to their success through people, integrity, courage, and performance. The successful candidate will pride themselves in their people relationships, as their stakeholders will expect them to follow high ethical standards and will always keep their promises. You will also be motivated by challenging goals and committed to high performance. As the logistics manager for Australia and New Zealand, you will be responsible for the entire local warehouse operation and distribution. This includes stock replenishment, planning, and operations. You will also be a key member of the global logistics function and as such be responsible for reporting warehouse, transportation, and other related KPIs from your region. Additionally, you will have the opportunity to participate in global logistics projects and other ad hoc demands related to the logistics functions and needs. If this sounds like you, a company and culture where you can thrive, then please apply below or reach out as I want to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Jess Hickey, one of our star recruiters from the Melbourne team. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mark.
How's Melbourne?
Yeah, good. It's a bit of a dreary day here, but still a little bit hot and a bit humid, which is not always great for the hair, but that's all right. But everything is pumping in Melbourne. We've got majority of our staff back in the office today after some renovations. So very good vibes here. And very, very busy, which is great.
I definitely have problems with humidity in my hair. Definitely. So now you've got some great tips for resignation at the moment. There's a lot of movement in the marketplace, and these are some pretty valuable lessons that people can take away from today. What have you got?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into it. Yeah, a couple of tips from me in relation to, moving on from your role, as effectively and productively as possible. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you have checked your contract or employment agreement to ensure you understand the terms in which you'll need to adhere to in order to resign. So things like notice period, any documentation you'll need to provide, any non-compete period, and things like that. You may think that your employment agreement is a standard 4 weeks, but we are seeing some companies do a tiered structure based on longevity, for example. Ideally, this should have been reviewed prior to you starting to look for a new role, just so that you can provide your employer or recruiter with accurate information. But it is a good thing to triple check prior to your resignation. Number 2 is to book a meeting or a time to meet with the relevant party, so your manager or any other stakeholders. Ideally, this is a face-to-face meeting in a physical setting, but appreciate this may not be possible in the current climate, or if you are remotely working, making sure it's as face-to-face as possible is the best way to go. Of course, your employer may want to know what's up prior to the meeting or the reason for the meeting, so booking it in quickly and without too much time in between requesting and attending the meeting can help curb these questions prior to this meeting. Number 3 is definitely to have a script. Resigning can be something that's really nerve-wracking and a moment of vulnerability for an employer. We want to make sure that you are thanking your employer for the experience gained and the things you've learned. You could even point out a few career highlights during your time there. Also, let them know of the logistics regarding your moving on. So, for example, the date of your last day. If you feel comfortable, perhaps giving 1 or 2 reasons as to why you feel like it's the right time to move on for you can really help your employer with a bit of context. In addition to this, asking questions like, how can I make the transition out of this organisation as smooth as possible? Who is the best person to contact in regards to next steps? There may be other stakeholders in the business like HR or IT that need to be informed of your departure. And a bonus tip, always follow up in writing, sending an email summarizing everything you spoke about in the meeting. We'll make sure that everyone has clear details on what has occurred. So that's my little
Fabulous. I mean, some real gems in there, and I could just we just saw a couple up on the screen there that from one of our LinkedIn users there that they love the reminder on the non-compete there as well. So of course, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, and maybe you could share some further tips. How's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you, Jess?
Well, I can see that Jacob has very kindly put my contact details in the chat field in the comments. So, please get in touch with me via phone or email. Best contact number is my direct line, so 03 9098 7439, or email jessica.hickey@people2people.com.au. And we are a very, very busy office here in Melbourne. So if you are looking for a new opportunity, please reach out, and I'll definitely do my best to assist.
Now, we should address the other LinkedIn user who said that it's an observation. It seems quite hard to recruit for roles in Melbourne, particularly technology-based roles. What's your view on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Technology is definitely very much an emerging market, and we are seeing, certainly people are starting to very much develop skills in that area. Over the last kind of 10 years, we have seen obviously the demand for technology staff increase. I guess in terms of if you are a client trying to look for staff at the moment, just make sure your brief is as wide as possible, and you are working with your recruiter in developing, the kind of three major things that are most important. What are the things that you can train on, and what are the things that you actually need? So making that brief very diverse, if it's flexibility, working from home, remote working, all those kinds of things, working in different states, making that brief as wide as possible in order for us to really attract and ultimately for you to retain top talent is going to be very important. So make sure you knuckle down on the three things that are most important to you, and identify the things that you can really train on.
Yeah, some good advice there. The only comment I would have is that there's been some hyper competition in technology, and I noticed this in our Brisbane and Sydney offices, particularly for talent. And that has meant some significant salary pressure in the technology sector. It's been big, and it'll be a common thread in 2022 with wage price inflation definitely going to play a big part in recruitment. So keep that in mind as well. Rightio. Thanks, Jess. Thanks for joining us.
Happy Friday.
We'll see you again soon, and thanks so much for the tips. So let's now move on, and we'll have a quick look at last week's Twitter poll, which was, have you ever experienced bias in your workplace? Well, check this out. A solid, only 1 in 4 people haven't seen it. That's probably the message here, that actually bias is very prevalent in Australian workplaces. Even if you haven't experienced it, you've certainly witnessed it, and a solid 2 out of 3 people have actually experienced that bias. So what about this week's poll? Here we go. With historic unemployment lows, and the numbers were great this week, how difficult is it to find a job? Very? Well, it's difficult. Oh, no, it's pretty easy. Let's find out. So although the unemployment is low, does that translate in the ability to secure a new position? Let's see what the Twitterverse says. Last thing I would leave you with is that there's a new Australian employment survey that People to People are running for this year, which we compile into our annual P2P post for our selected clients. You can jump onto that in the comments, and you can participate and book in your copy of that data as it's released in April and May of this year. Thanks very much for watching P2P Live again this week. My name's Mark Smith, and we'll see you next week.